So let's start with this title, Addis Ababa, The Marginalized Center. It kind of makes you do a double take, right? It's from a really powerful essay by Bethekadu Hailu, and it gets right to the heart of a fascinating and super complex issue in Ethiopia. Today, we're going to break it all down. I mean, how does that even work? How can the very center of a country, its political, economic, and cultural hub, also be considered marginalized? It sounds like a total contradiction. But that is the central puzzle the author sets out to solve. And his answer? Well, it challenges some pretty fundamental ideas about identity and power in Ethiopia. And he doesn't waste any time getting to his main point. He basically says Addis Ababa is a victim of over-ethnicized ideologies. So what does that really mean? He's arguing that there's this huge fundamental clash between the city's actual identity as a cosmopolitan, blended society and a political system that tries to force everything and everyone into a specific ethnic box. So, where does this all begin? Let's dive into the first piece of this puzzle, the idea of a denied identity. The author argues that this feeling of marginalization isn't about infrastructure or money. Nope. It starts with something way deeper, the denial of the city's unique character. And to get that, you've got to look at the history. Addis Ababa wasn't built to be the capital of any one ethnic group. From its very beginning in the 1880s, it was a place where soldiers, priests, merchants, people from all over came together. For over 130 years, it's been this melting pot, forging a unique, blended urban identity, where just being an Addis Ababa became its own thing. And this is where you really see the conflict. On one side, you have the city's reality, its organic history as a true melting pot. And on the other, you have what the author calls the state's framework, this view of the city as just a collection of separate, compartmentalized ethnic groups who happen to live near each other. The author gives a really striking example of this. He talks about a youth meeting where, instead of just engaging with everyone as residents of one city, the organizers actually had people group up based on their ethnic clothing. He called it a pre-planned stunt designed specifically to reinforce that compartmentalized view. So what's the big deal? Well, the consequence, he argues, is pretty serious. When the political system imposes these ethnic labels, it effectively denies people the right to identify in other ways, as a resident of Addis, or with their neighborhood, or their profession. That civic identity just gets pushed to the side. Now, this isn't just some philosophical debate. According to the essay, this has very real, very political consequences. This denial of a shared civic identity leads directly to our next section, a denial of political power, a city without a vote. At the center of this political argument is the idea of self-determination. It's a right that's actually guaranteed in the Ethiopian constitution. Now, it's usually applied to nations, nationalities, and peoples, ethnic groups. But the author's point is, hey, shouldn't that right also extend to the diverse, multi-ethnic citizens of a major city? But the reality, as he lays it out, is totally different. The city's mayor? They're appointed by the party in power, not directly elected by the people who live there. The city council, it doesn't have much real authority. And accountability flows up to the federal government, not down to the residents. Then you add in this constitutionally vague special interest that the Oromia region has over the city, and it all adds up to a city governed from the outside. So the takeaway is pretty stark. The author's conclusion is that the city's self-governance is, well, to put it mildly, very limited. The people who live in Addis Ababa have very little say in how their own city is run. Okay, so we've laid out these deep problems of identity and power, but the essay doesn't just leave it there. It pivots to some pretty bold ideas for reform. This is where we get into the potential solutions, the constitutional fix. The entire foundation for his proposed solutions rests on one big assertion, that the system of ethnic federalism is just fundamentally incompatible with a diverse, cosmopolitan city like Addis Ababa. In his view, the two just can't work together. So, based on that idea, he proposes a clear two-step fix. Step one is massive. Amend the Constitution itself, changing the parts that ground rights in ethnicity. Step two is more practical, but just as critical. reform the electoral system to give the people of Addis Ababa the direct power to elect their own leaders, especially their mayor.
And you can see just how profound this change would be by looking at the very first words of the Constitution's preamble. The author proposes changing the opening from "we the nations, nationalities, and peoples," which really emphasizes distinct groups, to the simple unifying phrase, "we the people of Ethiopia." It's a shift from a collection of groups to a collective of citizens.
So if these reforms were to happen, what's the end goal? What would Addis Ababa actually look like? Well, the author paints a picture of a city fully reimagined within the Ethiopian Federation. The ultimate vision is for Addis Ababa to be formally recognized as a state, or a special city-state. This would give it its own delineated rights and responsibilities, a unique and formal status, just like the other regions in the Federation.
And this is not just a title change. We're talking about tangible powers, the right to draft and adopt its own city constitution, full authority over local government, and critically, empowering residents to finally be self-governing. It would also create a clear, mutually agreed-upon framework for the city's relationship with the surrounding Oromia region.
Ultimately, this whole city-state model is presented as the answer. It's designed to solve the political problem by formalizing self-governance, and to solve the identity problem by enshrining the rights of residents as citizens of their city, not just as members of a particular ethnic group. And this all leaves us with a final, really big question that goes far beyond Addis Ababa. In our increasingly urban world, what should define us more? Is it our ethnicity? Or is it our address? Is it the group we're born into? Or is it the city we choose to build our lives in? The author's argument about this one marginalized center really forces all of us to think about that.